Welcome to my review for Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I think I've got that title right. Now, if you weren't with me for my reviews of the first two films, let me tell you that I thought the second film was a complete travesty compared to the brilliance of the original. So it has taken me some time to get to this third one, but here I am. This is a return to the more serious roots of the first film. I'm presuming, by the way, that this third film ignores the events of the second film, given the fact that Leatherface is alive and well again, whereas he clearly dies in number 2. But there's a really confusing and odd block of text that runs up the screen at the start of number 3. So apparently, in this new timeline, Sally Hardesty dies 2 or 3 years after the events of Texas 1. I don't know why they've thrown that out there at us, because it has no bearing on the film that we're about to watch. And Sally's escape at the end of the first film is one of the most satisfying moments in all of horror. So why you would mess with that and say, oh, actually, no, she dies 2 or 3 years down the line, I don't get that. It's really bizarre and actually a little bit pointless. Also, there's a character called W.E. Sawyer, supposedly, who was blamed for the murders of the first film, and he went to the electric chair in 1981. Now, this character name didn't jump out of the screen at me, so I thought that it must be an alternate name for somebody who was in the first or the second film. So I went on the internet to check, but apparently no, they're not in either Texas 1 or Texas 2. They're from the fourth film, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. But given the fact that he's dead in the opening crawl of text from number 3, then I can only presume that the events of number 4 ignore the events of number 3, just as the events of number 3 ignore the events of number 2. I mean, how difficult is it to just have one continuous timeline where everything makes sense? I mean, number 4 could be a prequel, but with a name like The Next Generation, I presume it's set in the future, so... Ooh! Anyway, the plot for this one sees a young couple travelling from LA to Florida by car, as you do, but on the Texas leg of their journey, they take the wrong turn at a gas station and accidentally go into Sawyer country, and for good or bad, we're into another Texas Chainsaw film. Continuity irregularities aside, I didn't really enjoy this movie anyway. I'm going to go through the positives first today because it's a pretty short list. We might as well just burn through them. So aside from the couple I mentioned earlier, there is a third protagonist played by Ken Foree. I think that's how you pronounce it. You might remember him from the original Dawn of the Dead, where he played Peter. He's fun in this whenever he's shooting a Sawyer or burning a Sawyer. There will be spoilers today, by the way. I don't think he was as agile by the time he made this compared to when he was sort of double-kicking zombies in that shopping mall back in the 70s, but he's still fun to watch in any scene that he's in. He's involved in the only scene in the film that has some genuine tension, actually, when he's trying to get bullets back in his gun and there's a danger he might be run over. Elsewhere, there are some good daylight scenes where Texas looked really good in the background. I'm assuming that's where they did the filming. There's also a good scene involving some CSI when they're unearthing some bones, but that just about covers it for things I enjoyed about Texas Chainsaw 3, I'm afraid. The couple I mentioned earlier, the guy with the glasses, he's just completely annoying. I mean, you can't act the way he does and expect to have a successful long-term relationship. He's just a complete prune. And I didn't care one bit when he got tortured or killed. The girl is a nicer character, but she's played by a completely Z-list quality actress to the point where I didn't really care whether she lived or died. I only cared about Ken Foree, in all honesty. I intimated in my review for Texas 2 that they'd taken the Leatherface character too far away from the Gunnar Hansen version. Well, in this film, they've taken him even further away somehow. I saw a documentary once, I think it was on the Texas 1 disc, but they were talking about the sequels as well. And I heard it said that Texas 3 was the closest that Gunnar Hansen came to reprising the role. There were some serious talks, but ultimately Gunnar walked away when they didn't offer him enough money. But whatever he was asking for, they should have paid it, because what we get instead is just not up to snuff. I mean, we get a sort of Brian May version of Leatherface in this film. He doesn't look right, he doesn't act right. There's an early scene where he's attacking the couple's car that just makes me think of a gorilla in a safari park who's gotten too close to the vehicles. He's like, ooh. Even in Texas 2, a film I don't like, there are a couple of good scenes where Leatherface is having a face-off or two with Caroline Williams, but in this film, there's not a single scene that he's in that's worth anything. It's a complete washout. His family give him a gold chainsaw at one point, as if they're commemorating his past crimes or something, but they're supposed to be skint, these guys. and yet they're getting chainsaws engraved and laden with gold. It's just nonsensical. His whole clan, by the way, all the new characters, they're all boring. They're all really cocky whenever they've got a prisoner in their midst, and they're constantly bickering with each other. Viggo Mortensen's one of them. I often hear it said that Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey got their big start with the Texas Chainsaw series, but no one ever mentions Viggo Mortensen. Granted, this might not necessarily have been his first acting role, but still, I mean, what's the bigger series, Lord of the Rings or Bridget Jones's Diary? But not even Viggo can do anything with this material. I will give some credit where it's due, though. They have at least killed off the granddad finally. At the point where they rolled him in for dinner, for one horrible second, I thought he was still alive. I was about to go, oh, for fuck's sake, but no, he's dead. They'll probably bring him back alive for the fourth film, though. I went through a phase in the early noughties where I would literally go into the city centre on a Saturday afternoon and buy loads of cheap horror films that I might not have even heard of, and my thinking was that if it's on DVD, it must be good. Watching this film kind of reminds me of that little period of my life, as briefly as it lasted. I mean, I could easily imagine this film fitting snugly into that pile of really bad films that I once owned. I think the quality control in my home collection is a lot better now. Having said that, look what I've got. It's only a cheap copy. It was about £2 or £3. I bought it second hand. Imagine if I'd ripped into this film for 7 or 8 minutes and then gone, oh, by the way, here's my Scream Factory special edition with booklets and posters and all sorts. That would have made me sound like a right mug. But the sad thing is about this film, if you watch old interview footage of Jeff Burr, the director, talking about the film, he talks a really good game about taking the film back to its roots and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, there's nothing creatively good going on in this film whatsoever. They even changed the essence of how the Sawyers ensnare their victims. So in the first film, they didn't even do anything. They just sat in their home and eventually a victim would turn up, boom. They've got something for the freezer. But in this film, there's two of them going out onto the highway and doing this elaborate good cop, bad cop routine and psychologically tricking motorists into taking the wrong turn where Leatherface will be waiting in the woods. It's all gone very wrong turnish, but it's totally different from how this was meant to be originally. And then we do the whole rigmarole with tying a female victim to a chair again and putting her at the dinner table and taunting her. I mean, this is the third time now, guys. Please do something different. I've not got too much more to say about this one, guys. It's a very low-grade horror film, I'm afraid. If I ever do another Texas Chainsaw Marathon in the future, I don't think I'll be watching this one. I might watch the audio commentary I've noticed is on the disc instead. I could possibly sit through that just out of some morbid curiosity, but if ever there comes a point in the future where my DVD collection grows so much that my wife says some of them have got to go, I think this film will definitely be on the shortlist to go into the bin, along with Texas 2, in all honesty. I can't believe, by the way, that after Texas 2, they've come up with a film that is even worse than that one. How did they pull that one off? Seriously, it's crazy. Right, let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score we've got for this movie. You can probably guess what it's going to be. Yeah, just the one bloody axe, I'm afraid, for Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Next up for me, next year, will be the fourth film in this series, the one that's called The Next Generation. I'm sure the makers will up their game for that one. Until next time, I'll see you, and just remember, the Saw is family.